We'll move over Bitcoin. There's a new cryptocurrency that is making moves and taking names. Plus, our in-studio guest is working with some of the biggest brands in sports. We tell you why. It's all coming up next. Our next guest turned his passion for motocross into starting the leading sports sponsorship platform, Hookit. Joining us in studio is CEO and co-founder of Hookit, Scott Tilton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I love the name Hookit. You have to give me a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, so interestingly, when we first started the company back in 2001, it was called Sponsor House, and the original platform was helping connect amateur athletes with potential sponsors, and we decided to change the name in 2010, and we went out to our athletes and asked them, what's the feeling that we instill when you're using Sponsor House, and the word that kept getting repeated over and over was, "You guys hook me up," and so we were looking for versions of that and ended up landing on Hookit, and that's the brand that stuck in 2010.
Coming from a TV background, we have Nielsen ratings. So we have ratings that tell us how well we're doing. And I mean, is that one way to describe exactly what Hookit kind of does for brands?
It's similar, but we take it a lot deeper into the actual data set that we're able to capture. So our whole business is focused around sponsorship analytics, working with global brands to really understand the effectiveness of their athlete, team, and league investments. Our main focus is on social media. And as we were building the company over the first 10 years, we just saw how massive social media was becoming. When we first started the company, there weren't even any social platforms in existence yet. MySpace came around shortly after we started, but then you had Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. And these athletes started just building these massive followings on social, and we saw how important it was becoming as part of the whole sponsorship equation, and that's where we decided to focus our efforts on how do we aggregate data from social media to help show and demonstrate the value of these athletes, teams, and leagues to brands. And so that's how we approached it. But versus a rating, we actually track how many followers an athlete has, how much engagement they generate, specifically how they're promoting individual brands. So it's just a lot more granular than a generic rating and more specific to what is this particular partner doing for me as a brand.
And you do work with some very prominent brands. How does it help those brands specifically? Can you give me an example?
Sure. So most brands, sponsorship as an industry has always lagged behind other forms of marketing in the sense that it's really difficult to measure ROI from it. But it's still a massive category where brands are spending, ballpark numbers, $150 billion a year on sports sponsorship, sports marketing, and understanding the ROI from that is really challenging. So the best CMOs that we're working with now are taking a completely data-driven approach to how do I look at our different partners and assets, and how do we leverage that data to get better ROI and effectiveness out of each one of these partnerships. So that's really what we're seeing is the industry as a whole is evolving into this very data-minded, like how do we treat sponsorship like any other form of marketing where we can understand the ROI that's coming from it. And so that's really the biggest trend and shift that we're seeing in the space today is brands are driving this behavior to use data to make sponsorships more effective.
What's the future right now for Hookit?
We just see the industry continuing to evolve and get much more data-driven, and technology, data, analytics is the wave of the future. So that's where we see things going.
Well, it's really impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think we'll be hearing a lot more about Hookit.
Thank you.
Scott Tilton, thank you so much for joining us. And coming up next, we have Best of Entertainment.